Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into SEC Nightly, the nightly show dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. As always, I'm your humble host, Brooks Austin, and on tonight's show, we will talk about Scott Cochran leaving the strength and conditioning coordinator job over there at Alabama to become the special teams coordinator, taking an on-the-field role at the University of Georgia. We'll talk about that with our boy Cole Thompson of all Aggies, former Alabama alma mater. And then we'll talk about whether or not hand size is actually important in the modern day NFL for NFL quarterbacks. Obviously, the NFL Combine getting underway in Indianapolis there this week. So we'll talk about a little bit of measurables talk, and we will give you our NFL Combine predictions SEC style. So we'll talk about some of those guys from the SEC and what we're expecting to see from them this week there in Indianapolis. Excuse me, a little bit of tongue-tied, but super excited about tonight's show. And as, of course, I already told you we'll be bringing on our boy Cole Thompson of all Aggies over there on SI.com. But first, man, we got to ask you for some support. However, wherever you found this broadcast, be sure to give us some love, whether it be thumbs up, whether it be a 5-star rating over there on the podcast platform. That's right, we do have a podcast. Just search SEC Nightly however you find your podcast. But, man, just give us some support. Give us those thumbs ups on Twitter and all that good stuff. We'll stop begging for your support right there. But we do have to tell you tonight's broadcast is brought to you by the Bulldog Maven. For all your latest storylines surrounding Georgia athletics, head on over to BulldogMaven.com. That's Maven with an M. Maven spelt like Raven, but with an M. BulldogMaven.com for all your latest SEC and Georgia storylines mainly. All right, let's bring in our boy Cole Thompson via the SI.com StreamYard feed. Cole, my man, how we doing today, brother?
Yeah, hanging in there, no complaints overall. You know, it's a good another day, and we have the Combine coming up, which means a lot of SEC talent is going to try and make their mark in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium and be able to probably solidify themselves where they are, fully with their draft grade. One of the biggest things about the SEC players is they kind of sit in multiple areas, so you don't really know where they are until after the Combine. This could really solidify them as either a first-round top 50 prospect, which means anywhere really from that 15 to, I would say, end of the second round range, or even an undrafted free agent. I mean, that's how much the Combine matters.
Yeah, it's so funny. These NFL draft evaluators, they typically have quote-unquote first-round grades on about 50 NFL prospects or 50 college prospects coming into the NFL. So that variance of whether or not you're going to be a first-round pick kind of is solidified here in Indianapolis. So, but before we get into our NFL Combine talk, Cole, let's talk about the breaking news that happened today. Scott Cochran going to join that Georgia staff in an on-the-field role, a special teams coordinator, after spending 12 years there in the strength and conditioning staff at the University of Alabama. First off, Cole, were you shocked to hear the news today that Cochran would be leaving the Alabama program, 1, and 2, to take an on-the-field role as a special teams coordinator just across the way in the SEC East there in Athens?
Well, I wouldn't say I was surprised because back when Kirby got the job after the 2016 season, when he joined in 2016 was his first year, he actually offered a very similar contract to what Alabama offered to bring Cochran to Athens originally with Mel Tucker. That was originally his second guy he wanted. Nick Saban added up a little bit more money. He took some money out of his own paycheck to make sure Cochran was staying. Now that there is a new role, a more on-the-field coaching level role, something that probably Saban did not want to offer Scott Cochran, that I think was the solidifying offer to bring him on. There was a ton of mutual respect between Smart and Cochran during their days at Alabama. This is not a shocking move for him to join the staff at Athens. It's shocking that he's joining in this role as a coordinator when there's very little experience for him in that role. You know what he's going to be able to do in the weight room, and you know what he's going to be able to do getting the most out of players and probably in recruiting. But he's also stepping up into that recruiting role a little bit as well, and with a very historically accurate, I would say, special teams role. I mean, you look at some of the players who've gone to the professional level from Athens who were stars, and we're looking at one right now who's going to be in Indianapolis this week, Rodrigo Blankenship, checking out all of his work and what he's going to be able to do at the next level because of what he did in college. It's just something that you look at and you wonder, is this the right fit for him? It's the right system for sure with Kirby. I just don't know if the special teams role is exactly where he's going to thrive.
Yeah, I think the first thing off, when you talk about hiring Scott Cochran and bringing him onto your staff, the first thing you're going to get is the energy levels. And I know you talked a little bit about what Kirby Smart did or originally tried to do back in December of 2015 when he was first hired on there to take the head coaching job at Georgia. First move was try to pull Scott Cochran with him to come be the strength and conditioning coordinator. That didn't quite happen. Subsequently, Cochran got about $100,000 raise there at Alabama, was what you were mentioning there, Cole. Went from about 4.25 to about 5.25 there as a or the strength and conditioning coordinator job. There's no telling, we haven't got the contract details yet on what he's going to be making here at Georgia, but indications are that this is something Scott Cochran valued and really wanted. It was a dream of his. Clinton Dix put on his Twitter account today that it was a dream of Scott Cochran's to be on the field, to have an on-the-field role, and he finally gets it here. Cole, this is a guy that had an NBA background. He got his start in the athletic training and strength and conditioning with the NBA, with the Charlotte Hornets, goes to Alabama, spends 12 years there, and then now he's getting into an on-the-field role as a special teams coordinator. It's still yet to be determined what you're going to get from him in terms of X's and O's. But to me, man, as a guy who, used to play the sport, special teams, to me, the special teams coordinator was always the guy with the highest energy level. Someone that could make people care about something that otherwise they wouldn't during practice. And that's exactly what Scott Cochran's going to do, and what he's going to bring to practice is that just there. Energy, and more energy. You were there during his time at Alabama. What was kind of the feelings and the rumblings around Tuscaloosa about what Scott Cochran did for that Alabama staff?
Well, I mean, you could just look, I was in the press box for 3 years, and then at the same time, my first year as a freshman, I was able to sit in the stands and actually enjoy the games. In the fourth quarter, they would have a promo that said, yeah, fours up. In Cochran's voice, he trademarked that to the fan base. This was someone who was on national commercials with Nick Saban because of what he was able to bring to that intensity and fire to the locker room. And every single day you went to practice and you were able to see what he was doing out there with his players and what he was doing out there with the rest of the staff. You're looking at this guy, and he is the most intensifying person on the field, even as a guy who's kind of just leading stretches and leading warm-ups. And that was pretty much his role. But you have to realize that, and I agree with you on this part exactly, special teams coordinators are very important to the NFL because of, in the college level as well, because of what they do is they are the person who you get the most out of. And I played for 11 years growing up in Texas. I know this area. I was actually a special teams captain for my high school. That's how much, I was down, like how much I played on special teams. So I understand the role of special teams. In fact, for me personally, I think a guy like Dave Tube out of Kansas City should actually be a head coach who is a special teams coordinator, because also they allow the offense coordinator and the defense coordinator to decide the plays while they're the ones that's kind of listening to everything, and they're kind of in every single meeting as well, which is why I think special team coordinators are actually very professional and very dominant in the sport, because if you need them to be the voice who's going to lead this team out there in stretches and field activities and get the intensity going, but at the same time, they have to be in every single meeting to understand what's going on, because of when the offense fails, you have punt. When a defense makes stops, you have punt return. When a defense makes a good play, you have to send the point after team out there. Special teams are most important to the NFL. They're not as big of a role in college football, in my personal opinion, but they're so important on little things, and special teams coordinators are needed. He is a guy who at Alabama trademarked a lifelong legacy of fours up and yeah. Like that was him his entire life at Alabama the last 12 years. And he will be very missed. I've reached out to a couple of guys who are still out in Tuscaloosa, and they say the news wasn't shocking that he was going to Georgia. It was shocking that he was going in that right role, in that capacity of a role. It was a dream of his to be on the field. Kirby Smart, with the respect that they have for each other, he gets a shot. And I couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned his ability as a special teams coordinator to kind of have his hands in all the position groups, and it's something that Kirby Smart spoke about in his release today to the media. Said, quote, "Ask anyone who's been around him. Scott's passion and energy is contagious. Special teams coordinator is a great fit as he will be working with all position groups. His knowledge and experience elevates our entire program, and we're excited to welcome the Cochran family to Athens." And it's something you alluded to as well, the fact that players love him. Talk about a relationships builder, right? This is a guy that has very few players that leave his program. And this is a dude as a strength and conditioning coordinator that works these kids to death. I mean, no one works harder than the Alabama strength and conditioning coordinator and program out there. They're notorious for their grinding styles of workouts. And, players love them. O.J. Howard, the tight end of the Tampa Bay Bucks, former of the Alabama Crimson Tide, had this to say: Scott Cochran is the epitome of a player's coach. He's bringing energy and passion every single day. Coach Cochran will bring out the absolute best in every player. That work will be put in and results will show. So, players are going to love him. Recruits are going to love him. Whether or not he's going to be the next Jim Harbaugh, who's a special teams coordinator that got an NFL coaching job, I don't know. Probably not. But what he's going to be able to do is elevate energy levels. And this is a coaching staff, Cole, that is based off of energetic coaches. Guys like Matt Luke, guys like Kirby Smart, guys like Dan Lanning, who's notorious for his energy levels. And now you add on top of that a guy like Scott Cochran, who you mentioned. How many strength and conditioning coordinators have commercials? I mean, you literally, Aaron Feld is one of the biggest names in strength and conditioning coordinator because of his Instagram. And this is a guy that might replace Cochran there in Alabama. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, but no one has a better public image and more notoriety at the strength and conditioning coordinator and level than Scott Cochran. And now you bring that energy and you bring that marketability to Athens. I think it's a home run hire just for the fact that you hurt Alabama a little bit more. I think the hurt for Alabama as that guy, what he meant to that program, is a little bit more of an impact than the actual benefits that he's going to bring to the Georgia program, in my opinion. So how much do you think this really pisses Nick Saban off, though, Cole? I mean, you were there around that program a little bit. This is something he talked about on the HBO program and the HBO documentary with Bill Belichick about how this idea that he builds these guys up, these assistants, gives them the platform and the opportunity to become head coaches at another program. And the first thing they do when they get there, or the first thing they do 4 years down the road, is continue to pick off of his current staff. And it's something that doesn't make him very happy. What do you think Nick Saban's saying right now in his coaching room?
I mean, you got the best of me. I mean, that's pretty much all it is. And now I'm going to come even angrier than I was before, and I'm going to come and knock you down. The biggest thing that I think Nick Saban doesn't understand is the reason why they're going to pick off people from his coaching staff is because of the success he has on that coaching staff. I remember a couple years ago when Billy Napier, the wide receivers coach, was offered 3 or 4 offensive coordinator jobs, and eventually he had to take one at Arizona State. And Todd Grantham, who was the head coach at the time, got an email from Nick Saban saying, "How could you take my wide receivers coach? I was training him to be the next offensive coordinator at Alabama." What do you want more from that? If you have a guy who's going, and now you look at Billy Napier, he is a front runner, and a lot of people were very shocked that they went Mike Leach to Starkville over Billy Napier, another Nick Saban alum, who I definitely think is going to be the front runner for Vanderbilt if they do fire Derek Mason this offseason for what he's been able to do at Louisiana Lafayette. You add all of that together. You're taking players who are coaches who are learning from the system and are finding their own ways to be successful. And if they're not moving up in that system, why are they going to stay with a program that they are going to stay in that limited role? You and I both know this. If we were ever to be offered something a little bit more of a promising role, as much as we probably love what we're doing right now, we'd be wanting to expand out more to expand our horizons because we would also like to expand that paycheck. And that's just something that comes with every single role. Kirby Smart is, Joey, Kirby Smart does what he wants, but here's the biggest thing about what Kirby Smart does. He respects Nick Saban, and he knows that if Nick Saban – to hurt Nick Saban, which is something that he hasn't been able to do just yet in the SEC championship. He's gotten there. He's faced Nick Saban, but he hasn't been able to beat him. So now he was able to offer a guy who plays a vital role to Alabama's offseason program in getting these new recruits in line to play year one. Now you have him in your locker room, and he can work with the strength and conditioning coach at Georgia as well as the special teams. He's going to have his hands in so many different pockets. This is where it hurts Nick Saban because of not only will he be on the special teams, working with the offense and the defense as well, he will be in that locker room. He will be in that strength and conditioning room, helping get those players ready. And with the number 1 recruiting class Georgia finished with this year, it's going to be vital for them to get some of those freshmen out on the field. Scott Cochran can do that, especially for the early enrollees that he's going to meet in the next week.
Yeah, I think you could really make the case that Georgia has the two best strength and conditioning coordinators and coaches on their current staff right now with Scott Sinclair and now Scott Cochran added to the staff. Obviously, Cochran going to be spending most of his time there with the special teams unit. But if you don't think he's in that weight room on that squat rack at 5 a.m. lifts, you're probably a little mistaken. That guy's got the itch and can't help but scratch it when it comes to lifting and getting better. So we'll kind of move on from that, Cole. I think. Do you have any more further thoughts on the Scott Strickland hire today? I know you were mentioning prior to coming on that you had some Texas A&M news. What Texas A&M news broke? I'll give you the full screen and let you go to work, okay?
So according to reports tonight, Tommy Robinson of LSU will be joining Texas A&M as the new running backs coach, replacing Jay Graham, who went back to his alma mater of Tennessee last month. This is a guy who has spent plenty of years in the NFL, both with the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals. But in his last 3 seasons at LSU, he has produced at least one 1,000-yard rusher, including Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Nick Brossette, and Darius Geis in 2017. With A&M now looking to replace the talent of Jayshon Corbin, Deneric Prince, Cordarian Richardson, and Jacob Caboti, with a new younger class of Devin Ackney, Conrad Vernon, and a few other players to go along with Isaiah Spiller, they now have a running backs coach who, one, is fantastic at recruiting, and he's done it from everywhere that he's been, including stops at Texas and Southern California, where he helped recruit Ronald Jones and Deontay Foreman to both programs respectively, but also he knows what he's doing at the running back position. This is a big-time get, and the final addition to Texas A&M staff. They now will have a full recruiting class to build off of this upcoming offseason, and they also have a full coaching staff to start working with the players in College Station for spring ball the next month. So this is a fantastic hire. I'm very much pleased with what Fisher was able to do. And again, it's one of those things where we see you're dipping in the pot of the SEC. Everyone is taken out of the SEC now. So you're losing guys from College Station.
Addition by subtraction as well, Cole. I mean,
they're going to Oxford. Other guys going to Knoxville. We're stealing guys from Athens to go to College Station. It's just everyone is just kind of moving around the SEC. This is another big hire. And most importantly, this hurts LSU at the running back position because they are losing their coach who has produced 3 straight years of 1,000-yard rushing.
Absolutely. And you know coaching as well as I do, at least in the way the coaching world works. It's all let me hire a buddy from a former staff or let me hire a guy that I used to work with at this other location. And what you have nowadays is a lot of guys in the SEC that either coached with Saban, coached under Saban, and they all mixed in the same coaching tree, and they're all in there together. And of course, when Will Muschamp goes and gets a head coaching job, he's going to start pulling Georgia guys. Of course, when Kirby Smart gets a head coaching job, he's going to continue to poach that Alabama coaching staff. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast. When the coaching circuit works like that, that's bound to happen. Cole, let's get into a little topic today about whether or not hand size truly matters. Cole, I don't know how you feel about this opinion, but I did a little research. Yeah, I got some bear paws on me as well. I got some.
I don't have bear paws. I have tiny ones.
I got these sausage fingers, big bear paws, big meat cleavers, as some would say. But let's talk about this, man. 2 SEC quarterbacks have the smallest hands at the NFL Combine this year, Cole. Joe Burrow at 9 inches and Jake Fromm just under 9 at 8 7/8 of an inch. Does it really matter, Cole? I'll give you the floor first, and then I'll tell you why. I don't necessarily think I buy into this small hands equals bad performance.
I don't think it equals bad performance per se. What I think it does is it does limit your throwing capacity when it gets to the colder months and you're outside. You have to realize that when your hands are frozen, there's a longer release and they stick to the hand. The ball will stick to the hand a little longer. So with that small hand size, the ball's not going to travel as far as you want. So a quarterback like Joe Burrow, who's being looked at as the number 1 pick to go to a team like Cincinnati has cold Decembers. They have very cold final months of the season. And while it won't matter right now, because if he will be a rookie and they are the worst team in football, far and away with the worst roster, they're going to lose out on players this upcoming offseason as well. They're not going to be that much better. I think that that's something that worries you maybe 2 or 3 years down the line. If he gets the team to like a 6-6, going into the final month, and then it goes 0-4 and finishes 6-10. That's where you start to worry about, I think, his hand size playing in the cold weather and if he's going to be able to work. I don't think it's a massive deal if you're playing in a dome stadium or in a warmer climate, but in that colder regions, that does matter at times, especially when the ball does not travel and you have receivers that can go downfield, such as a John Ross for Cincinnati or even a Tyler Boyd who can work into the middle of the field. I don't see it as a big, big red flag, but I do understand where teams are looking at it as possibly one, especially with that cold, inclement weather, and it is an outdoor stadium.
All right, so my boy Steven Ruiz over from USA Today and for the win. Not my boy, but he's my boy today because he helps with my argument here. What he did was he did this great case study where he took every single hand size of NFL starting quarterbacks and compared them to A, their fumble rate, and B, their performance in cold weather games. And here's the deal, Cole, and to save the audience a bunch of time with a bunch of numbers, there's no correlation.
Yeah.
If you track every single hand size and every single performance in the cold, how often they fumble, there is no correlation. And I found it today in an article I released on the guys at the Combine this year with their hand sizes. And give me just a minute and I'll try to find it. But anyways, it's the fumbling, right? It's whether or not they can hold on to the football. That's the main concern. And bottom line, it just doesn't affect it. Let's look at the numbers today from the article I put out on BulldogMaven.com. 8 and 7/8 hands, 43 games played, 11 fumbles. Joe Burrow, 9-inch hands, 39 games played, 11 fumbles. Tua got a little bigger hands, 10-inch hands. Games played, 33, fumbled 5 times. That's real good ball security there from Tua. Justin Herbert, 10 inches, 40 played, 12 fumbles. Jacob Eason, 9 and 4/8, so 9.5 inches hands, 32 games played, 7 fumbles. Jordan Love, big old hands on Jordan Love, 10.5 inches, 38 games played, and he's tied for the most fumbles out of this group of 6. Bottom line, the numbers show me it doesn't really matter. But common sense leads on your side of this argument, Cole, that, yeah, having bigger hands would certainly help you hold on to the football in cold weather. But I'm here to tell you that everyone has problems holding on to the football in cold weather. When it's 18 degrees out in Cincinnati and the wind's howling and there's snow on the ground, it's going to be hard to hold on to the ball, whether or not you have 10.5-inch hands or whether or not you have 9-inch hands. I don't think that really, really matters at the end of the day. To me, I think what they should probably test is grip strength. Well, how big your hands are doesn't matter. How hard and how tight you can hold the football when times matter, when there's rushers around you and you've got to secure the ball, that ultimately matters. What really matters to me is how many hands does a quarterback have on the football when they're in the pocket, when there's pressure around them. Are they John Gruden's two-handed monsters? That matters more to me than whether or not the guy has 9-inch hands or 10.5-inch hands, Cole. What do you say to that?
I think that matters, and that should be a test added, especially with the new format that they are coming out with the NFL Combine this year, including now 16 NFL drills instead of the original 10. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're going to throw that in there, throw in hand gripness for at least quarterbacks, because of that I do think matters.
Yeah, if we're going to be throwing goal line fades, we might as well do everything, right?
You need to at least see hand strength, and it doesn't have to be in cold, inclement weather. This could just be in general, because if you're going to a team like the Los Angeles Chargers, you're facing off against premier pass rushers on the daily with Von Miller and of course, Bradley Chubb. You're going to look at guys like, I think, Max Crosby now for the Las Vegas Raiders. They're going to be in the hunt, I think, for Chris Jones. You look at D Ford. Not D Ford. You look at Frank Clark, what he does in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. There are great pass rushers out in Los Angeles, and they're in the finest weather of the year. They're hot 24/7. That doesn't matter. And they're going to be in a dome for the remainder of their career starting in 2021. So those are things that when I look at, it doesn't matter about just the coldness. It matters about the hand strength, because of when you have a premier pass rusher in your division and you face them twice a year, it takes one forced fumble to change a game. Give the ball back to the other team's offense, and there you go. That is what I think is just as important to finding out about these quarterbacks than anything else, because if you have a high fumble rate, it's almost as bad as having a high turnover rate or a high interception ratio, because of it's still a turnover. It's still hurting your offensive production, because of you're not going to be out there being able to drive the team down the field, especially in close caption games. Those are things I worry about. Those are things I want to see. I definitely see how my argument with it being the cold matters, but that could mean anything. That could mean interceptions. That could mean fumbles. That could mean, just you trying to get the ball out of your hands. With hand gripness, it does show how you will go down against a premier pass rusher who will come at you with a centrifugal force of a semi.
Centrifugal force getting mixed in here on SEC Nightly. Bet you guys didn't see that one coming. All right, coming up next, we'll go through our NFL Combine predictions with Cole and I. But first, got to take time to ask you to support our YouTube page. Just run over to the Google machine and type in Brooks Austin and YouTube, and it'll pop right up. We'll be the first one up there. Tonight, we'll be breaking down and finding an NFL player comparison for Keely Ringo, the 5-star cornerback. This has been highly anticipated from my YouTube subscribers. Have been asked about it pretty much every single time I put out a YouTube video. Do Keely Ringo, do Keely Ringo, do Keely Ringo. Well, guess what? Tonight, we will be breaking down Keely Ringo. So put us over there on the YouTube page. Again, just search Brooks Austin and YouTube on the Google machine, and we will pop right up. Put us on alerts so you do not miss out on that coming up next. All right, NFL Combine predictions. Cole, we're going to do fastest player, who can improve their stock the most, and who is a guy that might seriously hurt his draft stock during the Combine this year. We call this the Orlando Brown category. All right, first we will start with fastest player. I'll go first. C.J. Henderson, cornerback out of Florida. This kid can flat out scoot. Of any of the players in the SEC participating this week, I think he runs the fastest. But the thing I am most impressed and most looking forward to seeing at the NFL Combine this week is whether or not Andrew Thomas can run sub 5 seconds in the 40. Now, it's going to be really, really tough. This is a 6'5", 330-pound NFL tackle prospect, but judging based off the foot speed that I've seen on film and the foot speed that I've seen in person and the athletic build, I think there's a legitimate possibility that Andrew Thomas could seriously go sub 5 seconds in the 40 this week. I'm calling it. Matter of fact, I put on Twitter a little bit a while ago that if Jake Fromm were to run the 40, I think there is rumors, I know there is speculation out of his camp that he's going to run around the 4.9 range in the 40. He might do best at the laser time to break 5 seconds. Here's my bet, and here's my bold prediction, if you will, on the fastest man at the Combine this year. Jake Fromm will get beaten in the 40 if he runs it by Andrew Thomas. So it'll be a very slim margin, and if I'm wrong, it'll be an even slimmer margin. But I do believe Andrew Thomas, 4.96 range in the 40 this week. Jake Fromm, 4.98, maybe 5 flat. Not going to know just yet. Maybe he doesn't even run it, but I guarantee you Andrew Thomas does run it, and I guarantee it's blazing fast and rather impressive at 330 pounds. Cole Thompson, what say you about Andrew Thomas, the 330-pound tackle, going sub 5 in the 40?
Well, if he does that, I think he solidifies the top 10 pick. There's a lot of rumor of him starting to fall a little bit down the draft board, somewhere in that.
Not a lot of rumor. There's facts. He is falling.
Yeah, but the rumor is that he could fall all the way down to the end of the first round. I think that it's more so in that somewhere in that 12 to 20 range. You look at some of the teams drafting there, there's going to be a team that's hungry enough to move up and go get that tackle. Franchise left tackles don't come around that often, but if he does run a sub 540 at 330 pounds, it's really hard to argue that this is not a guy who you're going to want at your edge going against premier pass rushers. But my fastest 40 time, you want to go C.J. Henderson. I'm going to go with the guy from my college. Roll Tide roll. I got to go Henry Ruggs. This is a dominant speed threat kind of guy. This is your vertical guy that you want blazing down the field. But the biggest thing about him is one of the things that I really love about Ruggs' game and why I actually think he is a better pro prospect. Hear me out. I know I'm crazy. He's a better pro prospect than Jerry Jeudy, his counterpart at Alabama, because of his ability to break speed coming out of breaks on routes and then pick it right back up after that. Those are things that I really look at. But one guy that I do think is going to be one to watch for and could really earn himself some love this upcoming week with a good 40 time is Courtney Davis out of Texas A&M. This is a guy who was known for his ability to break plays at the middle of the field and his quick agility routes. I was able to speak to his strength and conditioning coach earlier this week, and he's known as Footwork King. Make sure you follow him on social media at Footwork King 1. One thing he praises about Davis is his ability to change direction and keep that vertical speed. I'm not sure if he will have the fastest 40 time, but 40 times do matter in today's NFL, especially when you're looking for those speedy, shifty slot guys. I think a guy like Courtney Davis, who did not get enough praise because of poor quarterback play down in Mobile, could earn back some of that draft range and probably work himself into a late day 2 selection with a good 40 time and good numbers running the gauntlet. Those are all things I look forward to, but still, Henry Ruggs, to me, is going to run the fastest 40 time, not just out of anyone in the SEC. out of anyone at the Combine. You can book that right now.
Does he have a shot at John Ross's 4.24?
No.
Whatever it is?
No,
you don't think he's got a shot?
My bet for him, I bet the fastest 40 time will come from Henry Ruggs this year.
Yeah.
And I bet it will be
4.31
or 4.33.
I think that's a safe bet. I mean, I threw you a softball there hoping that you would take Ruggs, or as Colin Cowherd calls him, the speedy guy. So yeah, he's going to run really, really fast. All right, a guy who can improve his stock the most, and we're running up on some time here, Cole, so let's be quick. To me, it's J.R. Reed. Look, the former 3-star out of high school is going to have to show that he's got NFL explosion and burst. He's going to have to show the same exact things that kept him a 3-star recruit out of Texas in high school and ended up placing him at Tulsa before he ended up transferring to the University of Georgia. After 42 starts in the SEC, 42 consecutive starts in the SEC, there are serious doubts as to whether or not he is an NFL caliber safety. Guys don't know if he's in the box. Guys don't know if he can play, single high safety and play that quote unquote center field safety. So he's going to have to be able to show some hip fluidity, be able to show that he can flip his hips, and he's going to have to run fast and jump high. That is just the reality of it for J.R. Reed at this point. To me, the guy who has to improve their stock to see his draft value come back at what he actually performed like in college, it's J.R. Reed. The guy's going to have to show that he can run, jump, and do all that fun stuff and catch the football primarily. It's a guy who's been able to show he's a playmaker in college. Can he show those ball skills at the NFL Combine? He's going to have to run fast and jump high to end up being, there's mock drafts, Cole, where I don't even find him in a full 7-round draft. And this is a guy who's played, again, 42 consecutive straight starts for the University of Georgia and was on the finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award this year for the, I believe it's Thorpe, for the safety award. Anyways, guy was top of the list in the finalist list for it, and he may have a shot at, being a really, really late draft pick, 4 through 7 round. What say you, Cole? Who can improve their stock the most?
I'll go to just one from Mike's college I'm covering, and then one, of course, in overall. I think Terrell Lewis is a name to watch out for. There is a ton of great pass rushers in this upcoming draft. And you look at some from the SEC, like Kalavion Chase. You look at Terrell Lewis as well. He's someone who could be that fringe round 1 guy. And if he can measure well in the 3-cone drill, his bend, his speed, his vertical, his 40 time, everything added together, this is a guy who I definitely think you look at some of the teams that are drafting late or teams that could possibly give up draft collateral to move back in the round and allow someone to jump up in that first round for their second pick. Lewis is a guy I definitely expect with a good week to solidify himself as one of those fringe round 1 guys. And much like J.R. Reed, for me, Texas A&M, Kendrick Rogers, wide receiver, this was a guy who finished the year with, I think last year, over 730 yards. You also look at him and what he was able to do against in the 7 overtime game against LSU. There was talk of him being the top receiver in the SEC due to his size and his ability to make plays in man coverage. Injuries derailed him. The production of A&M's offense kind of slumbered. He only finished with 30 catches on the year, 2 touchdowns. Those are numbers you don't want to see from a 6'4" wide receiver. And much like J.R. Reed, he's a guy who is on that fringe. Is he a draftable player? Do we get him as a camp body, see what he's able to do? I think he needs a big-time week, and he is the biggest player from A&M that needs a week, because if you look at Braden Mann, someone will sign him if they don't draft him. Courtney Davis, he has the speed, and Justin Madubuike is a top 50 player on most NFL boards. I expect Rodgers, though, to be a guy who needs a good game and a good week down in Indianapolis if he wants to even be considered as a day 3 prospect.
All right, last category before we get into our pick 2 guys from our schools that we cover. A guy that could seriously potentially hurt his NFL stock this week. I'll go first. I think it's Isaiah Wilson from the University of Georgia, for a lot of the same reasons that Orlando Brown's draft stock took a hit last year. This isn't a guy that should test well, and if he does, you'll see a draft stock rocket. I don't think he's going to test extremely well, though. Not a straight line runner, okay? Not a bender, not a guy like that. He's just a massive human being that plays with elite levels of physicality. But I do think he's in better physical shape than Orlando Brown was at last year's NFL Combine, but he's not exactly going to light it up in the testing area. Again, this isn't a guy that's going to jump really high. This isn't a guy that's going to broad jump out of this world. His 3-cone drill might look really, really terrifying because I just don't know how much he can bend. His L-cone, all that stuff's going to look rough. But what I'm telling you is when you put the film on, this guy who plays with his hat in his hands, man. He always puts his hands on somebody. He's always trying to hit somebody and hit them hard. So foot speed, not there for Isaiah Wilson. Size, durability, the ability to run block in the NFL, all that stuff is there for Isaiah Wilson. Not an underwear Olympics guy other than the fact that when he walks off the bus, he might make you poop your pants. So Isaiah Wilson likely to test probably pretty bad this week. And he could completely prove me wrong. Again, I haven't been watching this guy's draft prep, but all I know is when you look at it on tape, the foot speed is not there. I don't expect it to match up with some type of electric 40 like I expect to see from Andrew Thomas. What say you, Cole? Who's a guy that might hurt their draft at the NFL Combine?
I'm going to go with the guy who doesn't play in the SEC anymore, but used to play in the SEC. You actually know him pretty well. That'd be quarterback Jacob Eason. This is a guy I look at as having all the 5 tools that you want in a quarterback: awareness, the ability to extend plays downfield, quality footwork, good arm strength. And I even spoke to a former mentor of mine who works as a scout and says, be prepared to watch Eason throw dimes this week. That's how strong his arm is. The problem is that we've heard this for years, both at Athens and in his time in Seattle at the University of Washington, and we've never seen it. We've never seen him actually be that quarterback that really makes that mark down the field as the big-time arm, kind of the Josh Allen and the Drew Lock kind of dude. He's a guy that you look at and has everything you want, but the numbers aren't there. The quality of play has been maybe middle tier at best. And this is a guy earning first-round draft stock from a lot of people I respect in this business. And the reality is, if he has a bad week, we're looking at maybe a Matt Barkley slide all the way to day 3, considered nothing more than a backup for pretty much the longevity of his career because of we were told all these things about him and what he was able to do. And if he doesn't perform up to that level, Kirby Smart was probably right to give the starting job to Jake Fromm. And also, he really just was that guy who never truly was, either at Athens or in Seattle.
Yeah, I got one for you for a comparison for Jacob Eason based off what you're saying. How about Zach Mettenberger, right? Yeah. 2 guys that were at Georgia, 2 big, long, lanky guys that had every bit of prototypical size and arm strength and just never quite put it together. It's something you talk about, Cole. When I go back and watch tape of Jacob Eason as a true freshman at the University of Georgia, man, there was stuff on tape where you look at it day one and you're like, that's an 18-year-old NFL quarterback playing in the SEC. Yeah. And then the very next series, it's like, okay, that's an 18-year-old quarterback playing in the SEC. Not without the NFL draft, like first-round talent. So, the arm strength's there, all that kind of stuff. Matt Miller, a guy I respect in this industry, thinks that what you're predicting is going the opposite. He thinks Jacob Eason's going to throw nothing but darts all week. He's going to light it up and cement that first-round draft status. I don't quite see it just yet. I'm in the skeptic bucket just like you are, Cole. So we'll just have to see. All right, last session here. Pick 2 guys from our respective schools, and tell the audience what we expect to see or hear out of Indy about our 2 guys. Cole, we'll start with you. Let's trade off. Let's go 1-1. We'll start with you. Who's your first guy?
Oh, mine is simple. Justin Madubuike. This is a 327-pound defensive lineman. You look at what he's going up against when you look at SEC defensive linemen. That includes South Carolina's Javon Kinlaw, Auburn's Derek Brown. You can even throw Alabama's Raekwon Davis and Auburn's Marlon Davidson in that top 50 range as guys out of the SEC in interior defensive linemen before you even get to Madubuike. But people are still talking to him. I've reached out to a couple people who I respect in this business, and they've told me that with a solid week out in Indianapolis, not only could he be a first-round talent, but you could see a team like the Indianapolis Colts fall in love with him on the turf in their own stadium and move up to draft him at the end of round 1. This is a guy who has all your prototypical speed to play in a one-gap system. This is a guy who I definitely think can make a name for himself as a bull-rushing pass rusher specialist in the trenches and someone who has the ability to make plays and stopping the run. You look at the running backs in the AFC South specifically. Leonard Fournette, he shed weight. He finally reached 1,000 yards. Derrick Henry, the league-leading rusher. Houston has a ton of money to spend in free agency this offseason, so I think that they will make a play. If not for Carlos Hyde, they definitely will make a play for someone like Melvin Gordon. You're going to want to have that guy probably get that stopping range. I could see Madubuike earning some quality time with these NFL teams and probably ending up as, if not a solidified second-round pick, a fringe first-round guy that maybe some teams would be willing to trade back into the first round of draft.
Yeah, I love Matabike's film. I mean, what I always do is Sunday before Georgia's plays whoever they play, I always go back and watch a couple of their last games of their opponent. And the only guy that flashed on defense for Texas A&M last year, in my opinion, was Matabike. And I mean, he flashed. He was doing things that, second-round NFL draft picks do at the defensive tackle position. All right, so my guy, I got to talk Jake Fromm. I know we've already talked about him a little bit, but with his hand size, to me, it's not about what you're going to see in Indianapolis. Yeah, you're going to expect to see, like we talked to you about earlier, a 4.9 40 or in that range, an average to slightly above average arm. But again, it's not what you're going to see in Indianapolis that's going to increase Jake Fromm's draft status. It's what you're going to see off the field, or rather what you're going to hear about off the field. This is a guy that's going to light it up in boardrooms and in meetings with those NFL GMs and NFL scouts. What you will hear is about his calming presence, about his leader-like mentality, and what you absolutely will hear about, I guarantee you, at least one segment on ESPN and NFL Network will be about how an NFL scout or an NFL GM has told someone that Jake Fromm is, quote-unquote, just a winner. He just finds ways of winning, and that he can lead a franchise. That is the type of information you will be hearing out of Indianapolis this week surrounding Jake Fromm. Again, it's not going to be about how he lit it up in the throwing drills. It's not going to be about how he lit up the short shuttle. It's not going to be about how his arm strength looked incredible on the field. What it is going to be about is how he's a leader of men, how he had that calming presence in those meetings, and how he won a general manager over, and how he won a scouting coordinator over and scouting director over there in Indianapolis. It's the off-field, behind-the-scenes, the meetings that you'll never get to see at the Underwear Olympics. That is the most important thing for Jake Fromm this week. That is how he improves his draft stock. Cole, we'll get back to you. Thoughts on Jake Fromm first, and then we'll immediately roll into your second guy.
Yeah, I think Jake Fromm is definitely someone that you look at and just as a winner. I mean, you go back and you see everything that he's done. He's been to 3 SEC championships. I mean, everything that he's brought to the table since stepping up at Georgia as the starting quarterback and taking over for Eason 2.5 years ago, it just says winner. I mean, yes, he has a loss here and there along the way, but overall, this is a guy that you can just pin as a winner. The problem is that if he's a winner on the field as a locker room and says the right things kind of guy, does that mean he's going to be a winner on the field with the numbers kind of guy when you're going up against defenders who are the best of the SEC players? They're not just guys who were, on the roster. They were guys who made a name for themselves and then came over to the NFL. And even if they're middle-tier defensive backs or middle-tier pass rushers, they still are better than what was already on campus when they were there. Those are things that I worry about with Jake Fromm. But another guy that for me at A&M that I'm going to look at, that's Kendrick Rogers. I'm going to go back to him for a minute. Everything that you have seen from him, especially in today's measurables, coming in at 6'4", an inch taller than he was listed at A&M, shedding a little bit of weight. He now weighs at 210. Actually only weighs 8 pounds more than Courtney Davis, who is 3 inches smaller than him. Maybe that plays a little bit in the wrong, but then at the same time, you look at his hand size, you look at his wingspan, they're all kind of smaller than what you want. Those are things that really worry me about when you look at this big of a receiver. That's what the biggest problem is for me. It's not that he cannot create separation. It's not that he has the size you want on the split end. It's those hands and wingspan when you are that big, I feel like need to be bigger. And if that's going to be a problem for Rodgers at the next level, those are all major red flags that just seem like an undraftable player. I hope he proves me wrong. He's going to have to do it with his speed. He's going to have to do it with his vertical and his pure strength on the bench, I think, and also winning teams over in, I would say, the draft process, the interview process. All that combined, I think, looks like you maybe can get something out of him that he wasn't able to get with Jimbo Fisher this past year. But right now, this is a player who I was very questionable when he declared for the draft. I knew one receiver was going to declare. My bet was going to be Courtney Davis the entire time. And then when Rodgers came out with Deputy Renfro and declared, that kind of already got me shook enough. And then I've started watching his film from this past year, and there was reasons he was losing those fights. The measurables just prove it, and they back it up. I don't know where his range is right now, but if he has a bad week, there's no way I could see him getting drafted.
All right, there you heard it here first from Cole Thompson. All right, my last guy we'll talk about is DeAndre Swift. Got to hit him right here. Here's the deal about DeAndre Swift. I think he absolutely has to run in the 4-5 range to remain that fringe first-round pick that he currently is in all of the mock drafts. Anything 4-6 and above, I think he's firmly and securely in the second round. I think it's that important for him to show a little bit of that burst, a little bit of that short line or straight line speed that he didn't exactly show in the last couple of years there at Georgia. Obviously, he had the long run against Auburn in 17 and 18, but in 2019, apart from about a 47-yarder against Texas A&M, there wasn't a lot of breakaway speed this year from DeAndre Swift. So he's going to have to run, in my opinion, that 4.5-ish. 4.58's fine. I know it sounds simple and sounds silly, but a 4.58 first-round pick, a 4.64, probably there into the early second round portion because he is a smaller back. He's a 5'9 guy, going to weigh in at about 210 pounds this week at the NFL Combine. The other question, will he even be a full participant? Had a lingering shoulder injury throughout the 2019 that progressively got worse. If you listen to Kirby Smart's comments in the post-game press conference after Georgia Tech when DeAndre Swift had that last bout, last problem with that shoulder. And if you go back and listen to those comments, he said it's something that's lingered and something that's bothered him throughout the year, just got progressively worse. Don't exactly know what it is, but the most important thing to me about DeAndre Swift outside of the 40 is what will teams find out in that physical as well. When they have that in-depth physical there in Indianapolis at that hospital, are all things a go? Are all things cleared up with that issue that lingered and bothered him throughout the season? My guesses are yes. My guesses is that he wouldn't be wouldn't have been playing in the SEC championship game and in the Baylor game. Granted, it was limited snaps. He was still on the football field. My personal opinion, that coaching staff wouldn't have done that if this was a major, major issue. If it was anything other than a lingering stinger, I think it would have been a problem. They would have kept him off the field and protected his NFL draft stock. But what will they find out in that physical? Are all things clear? All things a go? Those are boxes that DeAndre Swift's going to have to check, and those are the things that I would keep an eye on. The 40, got to run in that 4.5 range. Does the medical clear, and does the medical completely check out? Those are the things I'm questioning. Cole, what have kind of you heard about DeAndre Swift, and what are your thoughts on the prospect out of Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Real fast. Carl Bears, you don't want me to avoid the question. Here we go, buddy. I don't think Jake Fromm is an NFL quarterback. I don't. I think that he is a career backup quarterback at best. I see Chase Daniel when I look at his film. Big-time winner at Missouri. Big-time winner as a backup for both Kansas City, Philadelphia, and Chicago. That's what I think of when I think of Jake Fromm. So I hope he proves me wrong. I really do. But there you go. I didn't avoid the question. What I hear about DeAndre Swift is, one, he's the number one running back for me this year, which could mean good or bad when you look at that, because if you look at some of the other guys, J.K. Dobbins, there's a little bit of dysfunction with his film. I think Jonathan Taylor, big time running back out of Wisconsin, what they've been able to do at the NFL level, yeah, very good stuff. But I also think that his production is another reason that hurts him because of how much he was used in Paul Chris's offense. With Swift, it being kind of a down year, I think maybe does play into his favor, kind of like how when you had that two-back system with Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, both were ready to address the NFL and come in with centrifugal force that first year. I see more so with Swift a round two guy, but an early round two guy who you could probably mold into, I would say, a 225, maybe 250 carries per season type of back, maybe a 15 to 22 yards per game. That shoulder injury does worry me, and when you do look at what he can and can't do on the field and also with the reps, maybe that does hurt his stuff, but I'm not sure where he sits right now according to most scouts, but I would use a top 50 pick on him. Running backs are by committee, but I do think he is a guy that could be at least your lead back in the running back by committee style.
I think the number one thing going for DeAndre Swift and the number one thing in his corner right now is the limited touches that he had there at the University of Georgia. He's entering the NFL relatively fresh a college quarter or tailback that started and played, well, not started, but played a significant role for 3 straight seasons. There, as a freshman, obviously set behind Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, got the third lion's share worth of carries, if you will, was third in line. Second year, kind of split carries with Evander Holyfield. Granted, he took majority of the carries. It was almost split by like 5 or 6 carries. It literally was a 1-2 punch with Brian Harrion now playing that third role in that roster on 2018. Now, 2019, he gets his first season of 200-plus carries, his first season as the primary back in an SEC offense, and, finished, I think, third in the SEC in rushing yards behind Rice Plumlee and Edwards-Helaire, I believe it was, out there. A quarterback damn near won the rushing title in the SEC this year. Things will probably change with Lane Kiffin out there as the offensive coordinator, but we shall see. So those are kind of the things that I think about when I think about DeAndre Swift, the limited amount of touches and the sheer explosiveness and obviously the dead leg. But that has been our show. Cole, before I let you go, I will let you tell the folks how they find all of your great work. Send them to them.
Pretty simple. Finally can do it right. At Mr. Cole Thompson right below. There's my name. You can just follow me right there. You can check out all of our great work at si.com/TAMU for all Texas A&M news. And you can also check out my podcast, Locked On Aggies, surrounding all things with Texas A&M. And I do a lot of coverage around the SEC in general. We have basketball, baseball, and, of course, it's always football season here in college football.
All right, Cole. Appreciate you, brother. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for tonight. This is SEC Nightly, if you haven't figured it out. We do this Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m., except for Tuesdays. Trying to figure out what we're doing on Tuesdays because of my basketball games, and Fridays. Sometimes we don't do Friday shows. I apologize, but your boy needs a break every once in a while, ladies and gentlemen. But if you don't mind, show the show some support. Show the show some support by liking it, doing all that good stuff wherever you found it. If you found us on Facebook, hit that thumbs up. Same thing over there on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, tonight we will have a breakdown, an NFL player comparison of Keely Ringo. And because you guys are so special, because you joined me here on SEC Nightly, I'll go ahead and tell you who the NFL player comparison is. If you've read our stuff over on the Bulldog Maven, you've already heard me reference this before. Keely Ringo's NFL player comparison is none other than Patrick Peterson, former first-round pick of LSU. Cole Thompson giving me a little half back there in the green screen back behind the show. Get out of here, Cole. We already sent you out. We'll see you later. Anyways, Patrick Peterson, Keely Ringo, we'll show you that tonight over on the YouTube channel. It'll be probably pretty late because it's already 10 o'clock. I'll probably be up till 1 or 2 doing that. I'll post it immediately. It'll be over there on the YouTube page. So check it out in the morning when you're getting the kids ready to go to school. This is SEC Nightly, as always. I've been your humble host, and we're going to send you out the way we sent you in. Actually, we're not with the intro because I lost my dongle to my little thing. iPhones, quit doing this stuff, man. Quit doing this flashlight stuff I got to put on the back end of this aux cord because I'm likely to lose it. It's been SEC Nightly. We appreciate you guys for being here. We will see you tomorrow. When tomorrow? I don't know, but we will definitely see you tomorrow, and I'll let you know over on the Twitter feed at SEC Nightly. Search it on Twitter, and I'll also put it here at Brooks Austin SI. We appreciate you guys for being here. We will see you next time.